Out of all the glaciers that you can see in Southeast Alaska, the ones that are located up Tracy Arm, the North and South Sawyer glaciers, I think are probably the best. The fjord itself is magnificent. The North Sawyer Glacier is usually pretty approachable. It has less ice calving into the fjord than the South Sawyer Glacier. And it's close to Juneau, only 50 miles south. We usually visit Tracy Arm as we're traveling between Juneau and Petersburg in either direction. Once you get to Tracy, the entrance to Tracy Arm, it's a 67-mile round trip to get up to the end of the glacier and then back. And then if you're on your way, let's say down to Petersburg, your total trip is going to be about 200 miles. So your range on your vessel is may enter into this trip. As I mentioned before, North Sawyer is a little bit less active, and it's usually pretty easy to get to that one, but not always. The fjord itself has got these beautiful multicolored rocks, sheer cliffs on either side. Just feels more intimate, let's say, compared to Glacier Bay because of the narrowness of the fjord and everything seems to be up close. Many waterfalls you'll observe as you go down the fjord. Starting here in Juneau, we're going to take a flight down towards Tracy Arm. If you stay in Juneau, you'll probably be at one of these two harbors, Aurora or Harris. And we're going to start with our flight here, heading down the 14-mile long, narrow Gastineau Channel. And as we get to the end of it, we'll see Taku Inlet off to our left as we enter into Stevens Passage now and continue on south. This muddy arm here is called Spiel Arm. We're going to take a little sidebar here just because it's an interesting story. About 2/3 of the power that Juneau uses comes from the Snuttisham hydro plant that's located at the end of Spiel Arm. From there, there's a power transmission line that takes the electricity generated to Juneau. As we head up there, we'll see the two lakes that are used to supply the power for this plant, Crater Lake on the left and Long Lake on the right there. The plant itself is located at the base of the mountain. Instead of having traditional dams, the turbines are located at the bottom of the mountain, and tunnels have been mined through the rock to tap into each of these lakes, and that supplies the water that drives the turbines at the base there. In addition, the water coming out of the lakes, they've developed a fish hatchery for sockeye salmon at the same location. Leaving Spiel Arm now, we head down south again just shortly to get to Tracy Arm. And we're looking here at the entrance to Tracy Arm and the Tracy Arm Cove at the left there. We'll show it here in a little bit. The Garmin Active Captain map here shows the bathymetry, the shallow section at the entrance bar, which is from the terminal moraine of the glacier's previous position here. The cove, Tracy Arm Cove, is where we usually anchor. It's got a spit that extends out from the northeast end that does a good job of keeping icebergs out of the bay. Not always, but I've never seen one in there when I've been there. The entrance is pretty well marked. It's charted nicely. It has, every time I've been through there, there's been current coming through, but nothing too dramatic. This is just a shot we took one night at anchor and looking out into the bay with an iceberg that's grounded on the spit and a beautiful view to the mountains to the northeast. The arm was named after Benjamin Franklin Tracy. He was a Civil War Union officer that won the Medal of Honor and also served for 4 years as the Secretary of the Navy for the United States. Anyway, from Tracy Cove, it's a 67-mile round trip to get up to the glaciers and back. And we'll take a flight from here and head up. As we turn the corner here to the left, we'll start seeing the Tracy Arm, the North Sawyer Glacier. And as you can see, the amount of ice that's present in this section is pretty limited. One of the interesting things, just out of this geological side note here, when you see a valley that has a U shape, like you're looking at here in the upper left corner, that's a good indication that that valley was carved by glacier, in contrast to valleys that have more of a V shape, which would indicate a valley that was carved by a river. On the entrance into that part of the inlet is pretty common to see cruise ships coming down there. Not necessarily the really big ones, but this is the Chichagof Dream. It holds maybe 100 passengers. There's 2 ships like this that are based out of Juneau and frequently come down here for day trips for tourists. And here's a picture of the glacier itself from a distance. You can see the entire extent of it. And we took this video to show the multicolored of the rocks as you come around the corner there. I also can see in this video that most of the ice tends to hug one side or the other. Quite often there's a reasonably clear passage to get up and through the ice. And here's the Maggie Ann as we are within maybe a couple hundred yards of the glacier at this point. As a reminder about global warming, or an indication of global warming, the topographic and survey maps that were made of this area were done maybe 20 years ago. And when we were looking at our Garmin here, the map would indicate that we were on the glacier, even though our bathymetry sonar says we're in 260 feet of water. This is my buddy Bruce. He's demonstrated that, in fact, we're not on the glacier. He's in the dinghy here. And you can see the glacier's quite retreated some distance up the valley from here. One of the things you'll also see as you come down this fjord and other places like LeConte is seals with their pups hauled out on the icebergs. And we try not to get too close to them so as not to disturb them, but a good telephoto lens will get you some nice shots here. Looking at the Sawyer Glaciers from above, we're going to take a quick tour down here and go over to the South Sawyer Glacier as we'll leave the North Sawyer. The ice conditions as you approach South Sawyer Glacier tend to be a lot more densely packed, but even so, I think as you look through here, you can see that there's probably a pathway that you can zigzag your way through these, which is what we've always had to do on our visits. There's this looks like it's quite evenly distributed across the bay, but quite commonly there's currents that tend to concentrate the ice to one side or the other, making it a little bit easier to get through. Then as we get closer, you can see this is a much larger glacier than the North Sawyer Glacier. It's a little bit hard to get the perspective, but this next photo shows you the size of one of the tour boats compared to the big rock wall on the face of the glacier itself. And you can really see how much, the scope of it all here. One of the things you'll also note as you go down the fjord is these grooves, these horizontal grooves in the rock that were caused by the glacier as it's moving. These are probably 300 years or more old. That's kind of about the time in which the glaciers had advanced all the way down to Stevens Passage. So many waterfalls that you can see along here, reaching all the way up to the cliffs 3,000 feet above you. It's just gorgeous, really. One of the traditions that a lot of boaters who visit this area have developed is dipping out big chunks of glacier ice, the bergy bits, and using them to chill their evening cocktails. That's what we did as well. Chipped off a chunk of this guy, put it in a big bowl, and then poured some tequila and margarita mix over it, and that was our evening cocktail. So thanks for watching. I hope you get a chance to visit these really wonderful areas.